Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley. As always, I am so excited and grateful that you are here. And before we get into today's show, I want to give you a little disclaimer about last week's episode 268, Facing the Truth of Your Life. A lot of you reached out to me to let me know that you loved the topic. But also, many of you reached out to me because you had questions about the noise in the background of that episode. You may have heard some snoring. And I want to let you know that that snoring was indeed Sully, my 200-pound Great Dane, who loves to be with me during the day. And when I record these podcasts, I often have noise-canceling headphones on. And so I was not aware of quite how loud he was snoring until my audio engineer reached out to let me know. And at that point, we were past the point of no return. Like, the episode needed to go out. I didn't want to re-record. So all this to say, I did not have the heart to kick him out. And that's what you were hearing, which I think is kind of sweet. Now, today, I am so thrilled to tell you that I have 5 incredible women with me who are all fiercely committed to putting their healthiest years ahead of them. And in dedication to that pursuit, they have all taken the leap of faith to join me inside of my Rumble and Rise community. Now, some of them have been members for a couple of years. Some of them have been members for only a few months. But they are here to share with you the work they have been doing, how they have been able to stay the course despite the rumbles that life has presented them with, and to celebrate the ways in which they're rising along their health journey. And yes, I am absolutely sharing this with you today with the hopes that you too will decide to bet on yourself this year and join us inside this incredible one-of-a-kind community. So sit back and enjoy this really special conversation. All right, ladies. So thank you for joining me on the Grace and Grit podcast to talk a little bit about your experience inside of Rumble and Rise. And I would love to start just by having each of you kind of introduce a little bit about who you are, specifically your name. That's always helpful to know. And where you are, anything else you want us to know, and how long you've been a Rumble and Rise member. All right. I know it's a lot to remember. So if you forget, I can certainly cue you. So Stacey, let's start with you.
Okay. So my name is Stacey Mellum, and I have been a member of Rumble and Rise since last March, I think. So a little under a year. Yeah. I am 67 and recently retired from a long career in performance improvement and management development. I live in the beautiful Willamette Valley in Western Oregon with my husband of 35 years. We just celebrated our wedding anniversary. Awesome. And we recently adopted 2 kittens, Nick and Nora.
I'm sure they keep you busy.
Well, just before coming on this call, Nick knocked over his water dish. So yeah, it's always something.
So fun. I love it. Excellent. Natalie, how about you?
Hi, I'm Natalie Knight, and I have been a member of Rumble and Rise since May of 2020. I live in the Bay Area of California, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I homeschool my 2 kids, and my husband also helps here and there with that. But so that's it.
Awesome. Good stuff. Sunshine.
Hi, I'm Sunshine Moore. I hail from Michigan. Go Blue. And I think officially September of 2020 is when I joined the community. And I am a wife. I have a little girl who will be 5 tomorrow, and I am in the fitness and technology business.
Excellent. Cheryl.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Faber from actually Gravenhurst, Ontario, up here in the nice warm tropics of Canada. And I, as Sunshine, have also joined in September of 2022, actually. And my work through the day, I'm actually a director of social assistance. So that's kind of like our Ontario Works, it's called, or general welfare here for the District of Muskoka. And I've been I had been following Courtney, you, for quite some time before I actually became a member, and have really enjoyed the experience. So so that's kind of me in a nutshell. And as others have said, I have 2 dogs, no kids, always in training, but hey, I think I'm past that point now at the age of 50. But Fritz and Oscar are my 2 buds and companions here, and happily married for 20 years as well. So yeah.
Excellent. So glad you're here. I love it. I have to tell you, Cheryl, you're one of those people who I knew you were following for a while because I would see you like and comment on posts. And then when you finally joined, my thought was, finally, like, what took her so long? And we're going to talk about that tonight. So awesome. Kelsey.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I've been a member of Rumble and Rise, I think, since the beginning, which was just about 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. And I have 2 kiddos, 2 and 4, and I'm a military spouse. So we travel around a lot, which is awesome. And Courtney keeps me on track during our moves. And I'm also a movement coach. I like calling myself a movement coach, and a doula.
Yes. Awesome. So glad you're here. So this is great because I think this gives such a great representation to just the wide array of locations and ages and stages of life. I think it's one of the highlights of Rumble and Rise is that it's such a diverse community of women. And although we all have different lives and different rumbles, there's so many common threads through our journey. And I hope all of you see that in the work that we do inside of Rumble and Rise, that somebody might share a struggle they're having on a call and it resonates so much with your life, even though it may not be the same struggle. So I'm curious because I often say on the podcast, I think I even say it in the intro of the podcast, that I am really on a mission to help women put their healthiest years ahead of them. And so I'm curious for all of you, how you would answer that now. Like, what do your healthiest years ahead of you actually look like? What does that mean to you today versus what it might have meant to you 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Because I bet it's changed, right? And I see a lot of grins, so I'm assuming it's changed. Yeah. So Natalie, let's start with you.
So I would say that now what health means to me is living authentically and evolving into the best version of myself that is possible. Being strong, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and being resilient. What it would have meant 10 years ago is, how do I look in my clothes?
Yeah.
What can I do at the gym?
Yeah.
And so now I have a more holistic view of health since being in Rumble and Rise. So, yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by that prospect of like, oh, it's not just being strong physically, it's emotionally and mentally and all these other ways. We can get really caught up in the overwhelm of that. But I hope what you've seen inside of Rumble and Rise is it gets really exciting. Because as you start getting to know yourself on those levels and building resilience on those levels, life just starts to expand in unexpected ways. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just, keep peeling back the onion. I've said that before. And each layer that I peel back, it's not always easy, but it just gets me closer and closer to that best version of myself. Yeah. And even in the way that I relate to, others. And so it's not just about the lab work. It's not just about, the fitness, although those things are important, but my focus is more about, how am I going to be in the world and how am I going to age, and who do I want to be in, 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny you bring up the proverbial onion because I was just talking to someone about that today. And we were talking about how she's also in wellness. And we were talking about how we both entered from this very physical dimension. Like it was all about physicality. And then as we continued our education and we continued to evolve, we started to peel the onion back and saw there was all this other work to do, which there's a moment of transition where it's like, oh my gosh, like there's more. This already felt hard and now there's more. But to me, it's so exciting. Like once you get past kind of the shock and awe that it's much bigger than we've made it, it's so exciting because there's always going to be work to do, right? It's never done. It's just, we're going to continue the rest of our life and our life will continue to expand because of that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I just had that conversation earlier. Good stuff. How about you, Stacey?
Well, I'm kind of with Natalie on a lot of levels. For me, health now means waking up every morning, feeling alive and vital, having the energy to do all the activities that I really want to do with my life, and being just having a zest for life. And like, excuse me, like Natalie said, it's really about that holistic aspect. Mm-hmm. And when I was in college, health was about athletic performance. Yeah. And 10 years ago, it was about what the scale said. Or the genes.
Or the genes, right.
Or the genes. But now it's really about... I guess I think it's mostly about having the energy that I want to have.
And I love the way you introduced that too, like waking up and being excited about your day. Mm-hmm. Like there's an energy and a nourishment that comes from that I think sometimes, a lot of people, especially the age of COVID and everything we've had going on in the world, it's so easy to just kind of go on autopilot and make it a game of survival where that it's just not super exciting to be in survival.
Yeah. And for me, good health is really foundational, right? I can't accomplish the other things I want to accomplish in my life if I don't have that foundation of good health.
Yeah. So it's not like the objective of life. It's like base camp of life.
Yes.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Cheryl, how about you?
Okay. Actually, yeah. Well, my view today is actually based on what happened 13 years ago for me. So 13 years ago, I actually lost my dad. He was 74 and he ended up with Pick's disease. And I just saw a man who was so physically well and healthy, like strapping. To look at him, you wouldn't even know anything was going on cognitively. But then to lose him, who was such a role model in my life, I thought, man, here's a guy at 74. How do I make myself well and healthy for my next, ages and decades in my life? And then at that time, I was 37 and I was actually just starting back at school. I was taking my master's in leadership and I was just driving on the career path to self-achieve. And, then into my 40s, I thought, oh my gosh, I know something's going to give and that's going to be me. And so self-care really started to come into my picture for me when I was in my 40s. And I started doing half marathons and half Ironmans and Centurion bike rides and like got in with a great group of people who were really on the physical aspect of things. Yeah. And certainly then helped with the social, the emotional and the mental and all those types of things. So, just having now turned 50 last October, and that was a pinnacle thing for me too. I thought, gosh, how do I make this the best half of my life? And really that's where I'm at right now. It's like, you know what? I matter. And I'm not at that, people always say, do you work to live or do you live to work? And, I'm working to live because now I'm ready to explore what that next chapter and leading to retirement looks like. Like I'm ready to explore, but I need to matter in all that physically, emotionally, spiritually, environmentally, like all the aspects of health. And so, this has come at the right time for me. And that's what it means for me to put the healthiest years ahead. And I have a mom who's 82 and she survived through all that without my dad. And I think, gosh, I got a great role model here. So how do I keep on going for the next 50 years? So let's go for it.
I love that you speak to the self-worth piece because, change is hard. Making your second half your best half and putting your healthiest years ahead of you requires confronting things about ourselves that are difficult. And leaning into some discomfort and, that radical honesty with self. And it's worth all of that. It's worth getting that uncomfortable. It's worth facing those fears. It's worth taking the risks when you have self-worth.
You bet. And, certainly, as I said, I had my head down on that career journey, and especially without kids, that was an option I chose to do.
Yeah.
But back in 2018, I also had a real slap in the face in my career. And I thought, okay, something else has to change, and I need to put myself in the forefront finally. So that worth piece, that worthiness, and feeling real value in that for yourself is such a big part of this. So I'm looking forward to the ride.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're on it. Sunshine, how about you?
May I piggyback on that? I was on a podcast yesterday, and she asked me what advice would I give to my younger entrepreneur self. And I said, I would say it's not what you know, it's that you are enough.
Yeah.
And for me, my healthiest years are ahead of me, knowing I am enough. And it's about self-love for me. And to get there, I have to be emotionally vulnerable. And being in this community and doing the hard work and like you said, peeling back the onion, there's lots of work to be done, and I'm ready and want to do the work. Whereas 10 years ago, I 100% taught as many fitness classes as I could and pushed as hard as I could. And
Sunshine, 2 years ago, when I met you, you were all physical, right?
Okay. Yeah. You outed me. Benefit of you knowing me for a long time. Okay. It was even worse before we met. But I remember dreaming about the days that I could do a workout that was for me, not for someone else.
Yeah.
And I get to do that every day now. I make my workout schedule, and it's fits my body and what my Oura ring says, instead of, oh, you need to teach kickboxing today, but your Oura ring basically says you're dead. But good luck to you. You have to show up for your people. And I had to come to peace with knowing that part of my life is probably past me, and it's okay. How else can I serve? Well, first I need to take care of me, and then fill everyone else's cup.
Yeah, take care of you and get to know you. I think that's a part of women miss. It's like, we want to have this big purpose in life and this big mission, but we're not even spending time with getting to know what actually lights us up or what this next chapter might be about. So it is carving out that time and just getting to know yourself on that level. And I want to say one other thing, because I think you can identify with this, and maybe several of you here can, because I know you've all been athletes at some point, that it's easy to buffer with exercise, right? 100%. To make it about the sport, or to make it about the shaping of the body or the training or the performance, because it distracts us from other things that we don't want to face, right? So I just think it's a really important thing to speak to, because I work with a lot of women who buffer with exercise. And it's partly because they don't have the tools to manage emotions in other ways. So they're escaping emotion through exercise. And please don't, obviously you all know I'm a huge fan of exercise. I think it's lovely and wonderful, but anything good can turn bad if it's misused. Right? All right, Kelsey, how about you? One question in and it's like 20 minutes. I love it.
Yes. For me, the healthiest year yet is, first off, releasing expectations. I am a person that places a lot of expectations of myself. And through the work of Rumble and Rise, thankfully I catch them and I'm like, all right, hold on a second here. Let's pause and really be realistic with what my energy is for the day. But it's really about choice and living by priorities. And again, through this work, I've really been able to narrow down what is exactly important to me, and to make sure that is what is filtered through my day, and that is what comes first, not all of the busy to-do work.
Or things that you should be
Oh, just
doing.
a little. Yes, exactly. The shoulds. And really just always growing. I've always just felt this pull to experience like the greatest life I can experience and to not let my past or anything else get in my way. And so having tools to set myself up in the best way possible has always been something that I've strived for. And I feel like, yeah, every year is just getting better.
I love it. I love it. And I love what you said there.
I feel, yeah.
I love what you said about values and knowing your priorities and also being in choice, like making conscious choice about how you're spending your time. Because the truth is you can spend your time on whatever you want, but it's really great to go into that knowing there's kind of a cost. Like if I'm going to spend time over here on this, what's it taking time away from? Right? Mm-hmm. So yes, the busyness, it's not all created equal. That is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, just staying true to whatever is really speaking to me in the moment, not overriding that voice that's so subtle of what, the wisdom that lives inside of us, really tapping into that instead of listening to cultural influences or all of the other voices out there that I lived so true to in the past. I let everyone else dictate my life. And so taking that self-responsibility and just being able to see a new perspective.
Yeah.
And live in that way.
It's been very cool to watch that unfolding over the last couple of years. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm curious to know from all of you what brought you into Rumble and Rise. Like, what is the problem that you were trying to solve? What brought you in? Natalie.
So the problem that brought me in probably started way before I joined in May of 2020.
It usually does.
Yeah. I remember a good friend of mine, it was probably in 2017, and she said, "You are the calmest person I know." And I was stunned by that because I wasn't even aware that I had put out a persona of being so calm and cool, because inside I was a mess. I was just like a ball of anxiety. And it just kind of made me start to think about, well, why is that? And so, fast forward, I had been listening to your podcast, and in the meantime, I'm rolling into perimenopause, which brings up all kind of lovely things.
Makes everything so much easier, right?
Yes. And we had a huge move across country right before COVID. And I had a lot on my plate. And in addition to starting to not sleep well and all the things, and I can't, something's got to change. And just knowing and listening to what, your messages were, I just knew that I had to join this community because, one, I definitely wanted the connection of like-minded women and women who were looking for that deep health, and the tools. I needed tools to get through this phase of my life and beyond, hopefully as gracefully as possible. Yeah, and it's been wonderful. I have no regrets. So
what do you think has been the most helpful tool that you've adopted to date?
That would probably be around thought management. Mm-hmm. So I definitely did not have tools to manage my mind, so that as circumstances came up in my life, and also knowing how with perimenopause we decrease in progesterone and other hormones, that then we don't deal with stress as well as we used to. Really, my only tool was exercise, and I was pretty good with nutrition and stuff like that. But once I learned about thought management and how our thoughts affect our emotions and then our action or inaction, and then our results, that changed everything. And also being open to feeling the range of emotions.
Totally. Yeah.
So, because otherwise I was buffering in areas that I was uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
So,
and just for listeners who may not know what buffering is, right?
Sorry.
It's when we distract ourselves from our truth by doing things that temporarily make us feel better. So maybe it's eating food when you're not hungry, or it's watching the 12th episode of Netflix, something along those lines. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And Courtney, I remember, so I joined in May of 2020, and it was shortly after on a group coaching call. I would say within maybe the first couple months on a group coaching call, I had mentioned that I was alone in my new house at that time. It had been many, many months since I had been alone without my family. And I immediately went to food in that moment. Like I recognized it because of what I had learned already, that I wasn't hungry, yet I was reaching out. And it didn't matter that it was a healthy food. It was a healthy food, but I wasn't hungry. And I went to go and eat that. And you asked me some really good questions. And that got the ball rolling for me with, staying curious and not being judgmental and of myself, and opening up to self-awareness. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting. I was talking to a Rumble and Rise member today who's actually never been on a group coaching call. And I was calling her out on that, right? In terms of like, why haven't I seen you on a group coaching call? And she said, I listened to some of the calls and I get so much out of it. And I feel like, all these women talking have all these tools and all this experience and all this wisdom. And I'm like, because you're listening to them speak like 6 months, a year, 2 years into their process, right? We all started somewhere. And so I think that's just so important. And that's part of the beauty of this community, right? Is we have everybody coming in at different stages, and people who've been around a little bit longer can speak to the tools that people are just starting to try to get traction with. So I just think it's such an important thing that part of being a beginner is inserting yourself into communities of women who've traveled a little bit further down the road, so you can see like what you're in store for, right? Yeah. Stacey, how about you?
So I, like Natalie, found you through Grace and Grit, through the podcast. And I came into Rumble and Rise. Like I said, I was in transition. Mm-hmm. I had been working in a job that required a lot of writing. I was stuck at the computer, and it was definitely impacting my health. Kind of like what Cheryl was talking about, where you really get focused in on your job. And at the same time, forget this perimenopause. I was in full menopause. So, and I was struggling. I was struggling with my eating behavior. I was struggling with sleep. I wasn't hydrating enough, sort of all of the things. And so it was great for me to kind of come into this community. And I guess the other thing is that I didn't want to do all the same things I'd done before. I've yo-yo dieted. I've tried a lot of different programs, and they didn't stick. And I was looking for something with some consistency. And so I wanted to be in a community where I could try strategies that would fit into my life and get support in that. And I think Rumble and Rise is what has helped with that.
Awesome. What do you think has been the most helpful tool or practice?
Well, I mean, it's sort of holistic. It's hard to pull one thing.
Each other.
They all feed in, It's wonderful having the accountability posts for me. That's really a big one in the Facebook group that we have, having all of your information that gets us thinking in, some different ways and trying some different strategies is critical. Hearing what other people do and say, oh, I might try that. That might work for me. And everything like gosh, when you had Heather Ring on to do a cooking demonstration, I was like, you will not believe how many roasted vegetables I have made since she gave
that tutorial. I love it.
presentation. It was great. It was like, oh, this is wonderful. So, there were so many pieces that helped me along my health journey.
Awesome. Well, you've been an amazing participant, and I really appreciate you being here. Cheryl, what brought you?
Okay, I think I could say 1, 2, 3, repeat. Because I
ditto to all of the above.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. And like Natalie, and my journey kind of came through. I was in, I was starting to understand perimenopause because when you ask your mom, how did you transition through menopause? I don't really remember. I'm like, okay, you're not going to be a great resource for me. So I needed to educate myself. So I was really hooked into some great communities.
Yeah.
And then I was also doing a lot of self-care because, as I said, my job was very stressful too. I was doing health system transformation and social services system transformation. And it's just so full in the head, right? So I thought I got to take care of myself. So I found you, like 2 years ago, and I started on your Grace and Grit podcast, and I just out walking, pop you in my ears, and you just spoke my language, and lined with my philosophy and my approach and where I kind of was at in life. So I just kind of hung on. I did the Healthiest Year Yet challenge last year with you, and then in Canada here, like COVID has been like major shutdown, and I've been working at home for 2 years. Yeah. And so it's been a real time of reflection, and my husband works away through the week. So I'm here. So a total sense of isolation too at some points, and we live rurally too. So, I really needed to really start to look at me and what I needed to focus on. And so certainly, as I said, I turned 50 last October. I joined in September 2021, and it was a gift to me, really. It was my gift for turning 50. I thought, damn it, I owe myself this, right? Like I matter again. Like if I could bring that back, I matter. So yeah, I just, the community's been great. And I was thinking, I think I really needed that too.
Yeah, sure.
I have a good group of ladies here that, as we call in Canada, in our bubble, but certainly I just needed the social too, and just the validation of other people going through the exact same stuff. It's like, oh my God, I can so relate to that.
Yeah. Tell me this, because you were a longtime podcast listener. All of you were, right? Like before you actually took the leap to join Rumble and Rise. Some of you took the leap sooner than others, right? Just because you were in the realm, whatever. But I'm curious because a lot of people listening they have listened to 268 episodes of the Great Grit podcast, and they're still not a member of Rumble and Rise. So I would love for you to speak to how Rumble and Rise enhanced what you were learning through Grace and Grit. Like what is the difference between being a Grace and Grit listener versus being a Rumble and Rise member?
Well, when you shut down the Facebook site.
Yes.
Was that last
year?
Was that a year?
January. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was just like, what am I going to do? And I was just like, because it was such value, and that, I guess that sense of community was there through that for me too at the time. And then, I still kind of hung on, and I tried to, meander through some stuff, and I set some really good personal goals last year, but I just kind of felt after we got through the summer, I'm like, yeah, I need that continued growth and learning. I think Kelsey said that too, you thrive on that, and that's what makes me thrive. And I just needed that. And so, and then, when I finally sat down and looked at the cost factor, I thought, oh my God, the value for the cost, it's so there. And so it was probably just me. I'm married to a Dutchman. Maybe it was part of some of that, but yeah. And finally, I'm like, you know what? I can at least spend that much money a month. We're not going out for meals like crepes. I don't even remember the last time we were on a date outside eating out. Yeah, it was such a good gift to me. So the cost costs outweighed totally everything else, and the benefits are fantastic.
Awesome.
So,
thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else want to share the difference for them between being a listener versus being a participant? Because it is go ahead, Sunshine.
Yes, I can give you exact examples. I have sent a couple of your podcasts to friends saying, please listen to this. It will help. And then when you're ready to have tools to actually apply these philosophies, you have to join the community. When you explain passive action, that really hits home, at least for me it did, that we can do all the lessons and the teachings, but if we don't have the professor, i.e. you, to get our PhD from, to put all these things into action, nothing's really going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it helped you to take action is what I hear. It helped you to
yes.
to the road.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have to put rubber to the road, Sunshine. Like,
well, thank you. Thank you.
In action. Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anyone else want to speak to that? No pressure. No. Okay. So I'm curious. I know I'm kind of pushing through questions here because I have more I want to ask, but what has been surprising to you about Rumble and Rise? Because we always have expectations for what something is going to be. And it typically is based on things we've done in the past, because that's all we have to compare it to. Right? So what surprised you about Rumble and Rise in a delightful way? I mean, you can share the bad ways too, if there's any bad ways, but hopefully there's not a lot you want to speak to on that. But what surprised you about Rumble and Rise? Does anyone can? Yeah, go ahead, Natalie. And then I'll come to you, Kelsey. Natalie first.
Yeah. So I would say that the level of vulnerability that is shared amongst the group. Now, in a lot of ways, these women are strangers, although I've come to know a lot of them, through online and have connected even outside of the group a bit. But that's surprising. And I think in part that happens because it is such a supportive group and there's no judgment. We're just all here to support each other in what each of us, decides for ourselves, what is important to pursue.
Yeah. I love that. And I know there's people listening who are going to hear that word vulnerability and be like, "Ooh, I don't want to go there. Like, I don't want to be vulnerable in front of a bunch of strangers." Right? So does anyone want to speak to that? Does anyone want to speak to vulnerability? Yeah, go ahead, Kelsey. And then I'll come to you, Cheryl. Hang on. Kelsey, go ahead.
Sure. So through a lot of my writing, I've realized that my family is just, none of them are vulnerable. Absolutely. Like not one person in my family. And I think through this group and through sharing that I've always been one to kind of sit back too. And so eventually I was able to start speaking up. And I know a few times on calls, I've just broke down crying because I've been going through my mom's passing or just being postpartum and all the hormones are moving. And you allow me the space and I feel everyone's love through the call. You're just in that like a supportive bubble. And then you can actually move through it and you gain traction where you think you're lost. And so being vulnerable, I think it's very hard. It's so hard for me. I always feel my heart racing and there's just this special thing about your community and that everyone is there to elevate each other, and more vulnerable we are with each other, the faster and higher we'll rise together. So it is scary, but that is the work of our life, is to do things that scare us.
It is the work of our life. I just wrote something today that healing happens in the light. And I know that we all wish that wasn't true. We'd like to keep it dark and like to ourselves and like somehow it's miraculously going to heal itself. But self-awareness is the practice of bringing things into the light and then coming into a community like this and rumbling with women who are also healing, right, along their own path. Like there is something so supportive and beautiful about that. And I definitely see that very clearly here. So I love that you speak to that. Thank you. Cheryl, what were you going to say?
Yeah. And I was just going to say vulnerability to me. Sometimes I use the word authentic instead.
Yes.
And I use if you can't be authentic with yourself, your authentic self, then how can you go on a journey like this better yourself, right? And so to be authentic with each other too, we're learning so much from each other. And I just like that vulnerability, like you both said, is just, I don't know, like maybe that's why your group really kind of attracts that certain woman that's really looking for that authentic self and really kind of trying to be true around, like we talked about, your self-worth, and what that means. And to actually be worthy, you have to feel okay to be authentic with yourself and with others. So, but yeah, I pride myself in that at work too. And I see that it reaps so many benefits to be authentic. So if I can't do that in life, then hey, you're going to get me just as I am, right? So that's my authentic self. So
yeah, and everyone is really, pursuing different things inside the community, which is also a beautiful thing, right? We don't all have the same goals. We don't even all define health in the same way. Right? Which is kind of why I start the conversation there. What does health mean to you at this age and stage of life? Because health is your most authentic and most fully expressed self. What does that look like? Because for me, it looks very different than what it looks like for Stacey or what it looks like for Natalie. But to be in a community where we are all trying to be fully expressed and feel supported within that is something pretty darn special. Yes. Go ahead, Sunshine.
Being vulnerable, I think, is scary for people that haven't done it because they don't know what they're going to find.
Definitely. You don't know what's on the other side. You think it's rejection.
Yes. But what I have found in our community is that for maybe the first time ever, I feel seen, I feel heard, and I feel understood. Mm-hmm. And that when you put that out there, there's not shame with that. That's kind of a Brene Brown thing. There's not shame. There's actually peace and comfort. And it makes at least me want to share even more, because then there's even more support and more understanding and more hands going up saying, I feel you. I get you. I see you.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about that, Sunshine, too, is that I feel like in order to hear and, to be seen by others and to feel supported and all that, we have to offer that to ourselves.
Oh,
and I think
so
that is really the work that we're here to do, is to be seen and to be understood and to be heard by ourselves. And when we start opening up to that, it allows other people to know us. Right. And to do those things as well. So it does. And this is why that self-awareness and that self-relationship is so important. Yeah. Anyone else want to speak to that? No? Okay, good. All right. So we have a couple minutes left. I would love to know where you're winning and where you're rumbling. Because this is a question I ask on every call, right? Every group coaching call, this is the question. Where are the wins? Where are the rumbles? We call them the rises, but we're going to call them wins here. Just something that you are currently proud of yourself for, and something that you are working through. Yeah, Kelsey.
Well, I'll start with my rise. I'm definitely winning in the realm of falling and showing up for myself, and really at the stage where I believe in everything I do. That was definitely not true in the past. And just having hope and dreams for myself, and knowing that if I put my mind to it, I'll get there. Yes. Also, the impossible goal. I just absolutely love that. That is like my favorite. And I'm at 29 recipes now. I made another one tonight. So my impossible goal for the year is to go through all of my recipes that are loose. And no matter if I think they sound good or not, we're just going to try them out. Go my thrown just to get more into my creative self, and just offer up different ways of being uncomfortable, honestly. And what I'm rumbling with is still a little bit of my gut health. I've been going through a few rounds of different probiotics and whatnot with my functional medicine doctor, and we're still not there yet. So I still don't know that there's an energetic piece that is missing. But I think we'll find it. And again, with more confidence and love of life, I feel like that just really helps anyway.
Yeah, that's the word that came to mind when you were talking about choosing to believe in yourself and going after the things on your heart. Like, to me, that just reeks of confidence, right? It takes confidence to do that. And it also builds confidence by doing it. So it's kind of a win-win. Who else? Rising and rumbling. Yeah, Stacey.
So I think my rise is that I'm learning to enjoy the process. I've always been very outcome focused.
Yeah.
And so this is a challenge for me, but I am working on that aspect. And part of it is exploring different strategies, trying them out, seeing what works for me, what helps me with my rest or my, hydration or my nourishment or whatever that might be. So that's kind of where my rise is. And my rumble is still with sleep. You guys all know that. We've been talking about it for quite a few months, but that rest is so important and so critical. And so trying to figure that one out for me is a challenge.
Yeah. And I always like to remind myself, like when I'm in one of those valleys with a certain area of my life, like sleep, like I just can't seem to improve it. I just remind myself there is a day coming where I am going to sleep amazing and it is going to taste better than it's ever tasted before. So
that's right.
Just remember that, Stacey. Who else? Rises and rumbles. Natalie.
So my rises, I'd like to echo what Stacey said about enjoying the process and not just being focused on the outcomes.
Yeah.
As traditionally I have been. And also being consistent with what I know is working for me right now. So in this case, this month I've been focusing on being consistent with strength training twice a week and going to bed on time. Also, like Stacey, I struggle with sleep. So
there's a few of you in this group. Yes.
But, I'm continuing to experiment. And I would say that because of the way that I'm managing my mind, I actually feel more energized than I have in the past when I started to not sleep well. So that's part of it.
Isn't that amazing though? Because think of how much energy we waste when we're not sleeping well, and then we're beating ourselves up for not sleeping well. And it just creates this vicious, insane cycle. So
yes. Part of it being acceptance.
Acceptance, the big one.
But keeping an open mind to keep trying things.
So acceptance, I think a lot of people think is like laying down and just accepting everything that is forevermore. But acceptance is really meeting yourself where you're at and stopping the judgment and the shame and the blame and stopping the argument with reality. This is reality. And if you can spend your time and energy fighting with it, we'll never win that argument. We're always going to lose. Reality will always win. And so acceptance just looks like declaring this is where I'm at and it's okay and I can figure it out. Mm-hmm. Love that. Such a good reminder. Cheryl, how about you?
Okay. This is really interesting. And I was telling you guys, like I took my master's in leadership, and the best takeaway I learned when I did my master's was, it all depends. It all depends on every situation. It depends. Yes. And I'm like, when you ask that question, like what's your rise, what's your win? It depends for me. But if I was to look at it from kind of when I've started back in September and look back to, that time, my biggest rise and win was so much about establishing my why and really, really focusing on that on a daily basis. And I think, as Natalie said, the consistency code really framed that up so well for me. Yeah. And it just helped me look at that holistic self in a whole different way. So, certainly planning, my daily planning and all that kind of stuff has been probably my practice right now. That's been so helpful in some of my wins. I'm just fringing on the thought management and the thought downloads and the thought modeling. And so, but I really think once I got my why figured out, I stick true to it every day. And that's been, I think, probably my biggest rise and win over the last, I'd say 6 months almost.
That's a good one.
With Rumble and Rise. So, and my Rumble, I guess, is this like true confession? Like, are we in confessional here?
No, you're just declaring it to a few thousand people.
Exactly. I don't, like it, I think it depends. Like certainly every month we have an accountability challenge, right? And you think, okay, what's my Rumble, my Rise? But, I'm really struggling with this alcohol thing. And I listened to the masterclass or the podcast the other day, and I went back. Yeah. And I went back to podcast number 170, and it's not that, like, it's all how Veronica explains it. It's all about this social piece, right? But as you hit perimenopause, like, alcohol metabolizes so different in your body, right? And I just think, gosh, so I'm dancing with it right now.
It's a great way to say it. Yes.
Yeah, totally dancing with it right now. So it's, it's there. Does it get into my everyday and my weekly plan? Probably not, but it's there. And it's still something that I'm trying to educate myself on a little bit more, and just understand how the female body processes through all that, through perimenopause and menopause and stuff like that. So I'm probably in the stages of change. I'm in the contemplation stage on that one, but rumbling with it, trying to educate myself more on it.
Yeah. And, rumbling is really the willingness, right? It's the willingness to dance with it and get a little beat up and not have it all figured out, but know that you will figure it out. That's exactly what it is. And I want to tell you that I've long said that, self-care doesn't always look the same. And when you say that phrase to me, it depends. I really envision this t-shirt that on the front that says, what does self-care look like today? And on the back, it says, it depends.
100%. Yes.
Right? Because it does. It just depends. Love it. So good.
Yeah.
All right, Sunshine, how about you? Rise and rumble.
I see a t-shirt in your future for a Christmas gift.
I'll keep that in mind.
My rise is definitely around thought management. The confidence code is such a great starting place with, for me, naming and noticing. I still use that all the time. Whether I listen to that every day,
of course.
Some days are better than others. So thought management, definitely a rise. And then a rumble is when I revert back to old behavior patterns.
Sure.
For example, reacting with anger, because it's natural. And I rumble with that because it's easier for me to do that. And I need to give myself the grace of saying, it's okay to not respond that way.
Mm-hmm. And it's also okay to respond that way, right? And recognize that it's not the way you want to be anymore.
Right.
But it's the brain's way of just conserving energy. And it's so easy that it's easy to react that way.
Yes.
So there's grace in that too, in that I did this thing and it's okay. It doesn't make me a bad person.
Yes. And asking myself, what do I want to make this mean?
Yes.
You are in my head when I ask that.
Great. I love it when I'm in people's head in that way. That's great.
Yes.
Okay. I have one more question, and I'm going to ask Stacey first because I know you have to go right here at 5:00. So what would you say to somebody who's been listening to the podcast, who is an avid listener, always consuming content, but has yet to join us inside of Rumble and Rise?
Well, so I'd say give it a shot. I mean, one of the nice things about your business model is that you don't tie people into, some kind of annual contract or any of those sorts of things. So there's really very little risk to come in and try it out and see, because I think once you're in, you'll want to stay. But it depends. It depends upon what your goals are as an individual and what you want to accomplish. But there are all the tools inside that can really help.
What's interesting is at the end of 2021, I ran the special for annual membership. And we now have I think it's 75% of our membership is annual members. Like that was like a very emotional day for me, because I was like, I don't know that I could get a bigger compliment than that.
Well, you're stuck with us for 12 months now.
Well, you're stuck with me. I don't know which way it works, but Yeah. So it was definitely a good moment. So thank you for that. Yes. Give it a shot. It's $59. And like Cheryl spoke to this really well earlier, that the value is way beyond $59. You're getting access to so much support, so much information that the price it's a no-brainer when you see what you're getting for that price.
Well, and I just want to add that in my professional career, one of the things I did was I coached facilitators. And Courtney, you are one of the best facilitators I've ever worked with. And that does make a big difference. Everybody kind of talked about the community and how it was okay to be vulnerable and to make progress, but you can't do that if you don't have a facilitator who's as skilled as you are. Mm-hmm. So I just think that that's another value to the program that I would encourage people to explore.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Stacey. I really appreciate that. Anyone else want to say, like, what would you say to a member sitting on or not a member, but a listener sitting on the fence? Anyone? Yeah. You don't have, yeah. Natalie, I'll go Natalie first. Everyone's hand goes up at the same time. Let's go, Natalie.
Okay. Yeah. I've often wondered, because I've shared, like other members, I've shared with friends and family, your podcast and your Healthiest Year Yet challenge and things like that, and talked about Rumble and Rise. And oftentimes these women are in the same phase of life that I am. And I wonder what makes them hesitate to even at the very least, explore more of what you teach and have to offer. And I say this without judgment because I was this person. Sure. One was, okay, $59 a month, my family can afford that. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know if I want to invest that in myself. Well, why was I thinking that? Well, because I wasn't thinking that I was worth it, and so I had to come to a point in believing that I was worth that investment. And the other thing is, this work and what you teach will incentivize someone, I think, to get still. And really, you did a podcast recently about facing the truth of your life. And this work makes you do that. Now, that can be scary, as someone said earlier, but it's so worth it, because what's the alternative? You
hide from your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And the friends and family that I've shared with, these are the two main reasons I think, that makes someone hesitate. Mm-hmm. But why not do that work with the support of the Rumble and Rise community, which makes it so much more enjoyable,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny? I love what you said. I love all of it, but that initial part too about, not feeling that maybe you were worth the $59 a month investment. And yet, I pay $59 to fill up my car with gas.
Yes.
I mean, it's just it's so interesting, the perspective on what is this money actually getting you? It's not a thing. It's a set of skills that you will carry with you the rest of your freaking life, even if you only join for a month. Even if it's 1 month, I guarantee you will walk away with 10 times that value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Kelsey.
For me, I feel like one of the things I rumbled with is my life is good enough. Do I really need to do this work? It's, I'm fine.
I'm fine. It's my favorite saying.
More than
yeah. I want you to be better than fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hear my friends say it all the time. I'm like, well, I want it to be better than fine. I want to enjoy every moment of it and learn constantly from my mistakes and, and be able to teach my kids all of these things. It's, and to be able to, even if my kids were grown, and for them to see the change in me is huge. So yeah, life is not supposed to be good enough.
Definitely not. Definitely not. That is not this camp. That's a different camp. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, I'll come to Sunshine and then we'll finish with you, Cheryl.
I once asked a tennis player of mine why he wasn't taking private lessons from me.
Mm-hmm.
He could be so much better. And he said, well, when I get better, I'll come take private lessons from you.
Right.
Right. And I said, well, how are you supposed to do that? And why do you think you have to be better to get private lessons?
Yeah.
And it was about sense of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my girlfriend the other day, why have you still not joined Rumble and Rise? I'm ready to just pay for it for you. It's not that she can't afford it, but she said, well, I want to be in a better headspace before I join.
Right.
What? How?
Yeah.
And I said, how are you going to get there? Tell me the plan. And she said, well, I don't know. Well, okay. Then you just need to join, because you will help make the plan for yourself in Rumble and Rise and get tools to help you do that with more ease.
Yeah.
Life doesn't have to be as hard as we make it.
It's so funny that you say this, because I have clients all the time tell me, gosh, I almost thought about canceling our appointment today because I had such a terrible week. I just didn't do anything I was committed to, and I'm really down on myself. And I'm like, what do you think coaching is? Like, it's not you coming and cheerleading. Like, that's not what coaching is. It's helping you to rumble. It's helping you to get back in alignment with what you said you wanted to do. And both of those examples are so perfect. So
Yes.
great. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Cheryl.
Oh, sunshine, that's priceless. It's just like the cleaning lady, right? Like those people you hear, they've got a cleaning lady. Well, they
Before
clean
they
up for
come.
they clean for the cleaning ladies, just like that. So anyway, I think what I would say, Courtney, was, hey, what are you waiting for? Right? Like I was one of you. Like, I reaped the fringe benefits of all of your supports and services for 2 years. And, it was the best gift I gave myself. I've had no regrets since taking the plunge, if you want to call it that, right? And if I could put it in Canadian dollars, what's $73 a month in Canadian dollars, right? Like, gosh, like, I think, as I said before, and some of us have said right now, like, I'm not buying clothes for work. I'm not driving to work right now. Like, I'm not going out for lunches. Like, come on, if I can't give myself this kind of gift for self-care, gosh, it's a small price to pay for the benefits that I'm reaping from my lifetime journey. So,
and hasn't one of the gifts of COVID really been that we get to see where we want to reshape our lives, and the gift of slowing down and pulling back and reconsidering. And I think that a lot of people obviously have been become very aware of how precious their health is and how precious, the rest of their life is. So why not make it the best it can be? You're all amazing. I feel so honored to work with all of you, truly, deeply. I am incredibly grateful for you taking an hour of your time to be here with me to brag on Rumble and Rise. You all did a wonderful job. Checks are in the mail. No, I'm just kidding. No checks in the mail. This is not a paid testimonial. But I do really appreciate your hearts and your really your willingness to get in and do the work that you have called yourself to do, because I can see it in all of you. It inspires me to want to keep doing my own work. So yeah, I will see you inside the arena.
Well, and I was going to say, look out, Montana, because when I get there, I'm looking you up, girl.
You better. All of you better come to Montana at some point. Yes, I love it.
Sounds
I know.
good.
Rumble and Rise retreat somewhere in the future. We don't know when, we don't know where, but yes.
I'm in.
We keep talking about it. All right, ladies, have a wonderful night. And thank you so much. All right, bye.
Bye.
See you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this podcast today as much as I enjoyed facilitating the conversation. And if you are a woman who can hear yourself in what these women shared here today, I would be honored to have you join us inside of the Rumble and Rise community. You can find out all the details and get yourself registered by going over to graceandgrit.com/ready to rumble. And as a new member, I just want to tell you a little bit about what to expect. Once you get registered, you will be gifted a 4-part video series called The Consistency Code, which really is the recommended starting ground for people entering the arena. And the reason it's the recommended starting place is because it teaches you a 4-part framework for starting to lead yourself along your health journey in a more powerful way. And then as an extension of that course, I teach monthly masterclasses. So I teach a masterclass at the start of every month to help you reorient the way that you think about and nurture your own health. And the masterclasses that I teach are really based on one of four categories. It's either a masterclass that helps you to explore what it means to stabilize your chemistry, so your internal chemistry, or it's a masterclass talking about ways in which to design your strategy in a way that is sustainable. I teach masterclasses on thought management because how you think is going to drive your journey. And I also teach a lot of masterclasses on developing emotional agility, which is really your capacity to allow emotion, process emotion, and generate emotion in healthy ways. There is a very robust vault of past masterclasses, which you will get access to as a member, which is, again, covers a wide range of topics. And you will also receive invitations to participate in group coaching calls. There is so much opportunity inside this community to get support, to be coached through your own rumbles. And so you will see a schedule inside of the membership site for all of the calls that we have in a month. And there is something every single week. And sometimes there's even more than one invitation per week. So there's a lot of opportunity to participate in group coaching calls. And then all of the masterclasses and even the consistency code is housed on a private podcast channel. So if you're a podcast listener, which obviously you are if you're listening to this episode, you will enjoy this feature that all of the education content is available to you in podcast form. It's also available in video format, but the podcast, as we have found, is a very easy way for members to consume content. And then perhaps most notable of all is you will become a part of a community of like-minded women who are all working towards understanding themselves better so they can lead themselves better. So if any of that speaks to you, if you feel the pull, if you have been feeling the pull for a while and have yet to register, let today be the day. Again, you can register by going to graceandgrit.com/ready to rumble. And I cannot wait to see you on the inside. Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story. And it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort. And with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.